So, hello and welcome back yet again to Christine doing unhinged chapter recaps of Tamora Pierce's amazing and phenomenal series of The Protector of the Small. We are on the final book and we are about halfway through it, so things are definitely heating up. In the last chapter, Kel went back and reported in at Fort Mastiff to Lord Wilden. She did try to get herself relieved of command. Well, she didn't try to get relieved of command, but she did bring a whole lot of complaints from her civilians, kind of in the back of her mind, hoping that Lord Wilden would say, "You're not fit to be in command," and then she could go off hunting the Nothing Man, which is what she really wants to do. He is the person who is making the killing devices, and the Chamber of the Ordeal has given her the charge to stop him. Now, according to the Chamber of the Ordeal, she will get her chance, but she's kind of champing at the bit a little bit. And I've actually written notes to do 2 chapters this time, so yay for me for actually getting that many notes done. Hopefully I will get through this all. And yeah, so anyway, this is book 4 of Protector of the Small, Lady Knight, that we are reviewing. It is chapter 10 and chapter 11. We're going to start with chapter 10, The Refugees Fight. Chapter 10 starts off with Kel heading back to Haven. You know, she gets back, and the first thing that happens is evidently some couriers have been in, and Neil has gotten a letter from his lady love, so he takes off to go and read a letter from Kel's friend, one of the Yaminis, who seems to be very sweet on Neil. It's kind of nice to see a little bit of a budding romance that seems to be going a little bit better than any of Kel's romances. Kel, dismissing Neil, reports in and talks with Merrick, who is one of her fellow knights that she was a page with, and he lets her know that they've got about another 80 or 90 new refugees. Kel gives him his new soldiers that she brought from Fort Mastiff, and he tells her that he has every confidence in her, which is good, but what makes her feel even better is she hears him telling one of the new soldiers that if anything happens outside of the walls, that is Merrick's domain, and that the soldiers should listen to him for any orders about things that happen when they're on patrol. But anything that happens within the walls of Haven, that they need to look to Kel to let them know what to do, and that he has every faith in her. That makes her feel kind of good, which is probably a good thing because more trouble is coming Kel's way. Now, Funch, who was one of the kind of head women who did not like Kel at all when they first met, they butted heads a lot. She seems to be warming up to Kel. She, in fact, comments that she's pretty sure that Kel must have commoner blood because she has common sense. The annoying guy who sent most of the letters to Lord Wilden, I can't remember what his name is because he is so irrelevant to me that I have promptly forgotten it. While Kel was gone at Fort Mastiff reporting into Lord Wilden, tried to take over. He tried to get himself elected headman while Kel was gone. And all of the other civilians, all of Kel's refugees, kind of just were like, no, you're pointless and useless. This is showing yet again that Kel is very much loved and accepted by these commoners, even the ones that maybe didn't like her all that much when they first met her, like Fonch. You know, Fonch was definitely one who didn't like Kel at all. She thought that Kel was just a jumped up, noble upstart with her head in the clouds who would run away shrieking the minute something bad happened. And now Fancha's like, yeah, I kind of like this girl. You know, she's got a good head on her shoulders. And that seems to be the general consensus. Kel is planning on starting to eat again in the general mess hall with the soldiers and everybody else, all of her people, because the only reason she stopped doing that was because the cooks were very nervous about Numir. Numir is no longer with them. He's moved on into the main part of the army. And Kel hears even more kind of scuttlebutt as she's sitting and eating. You know, people are whispering that, you know, she is a real knight. She's got a good head on her shoulders. It's kind of good, you know. The new sergeants all head in, and Kel is heading back to headquarters because she still needs to let Merrick and the rest of her soldier contingent know that Fort Steadfast, or no, wait, Fort Giant Killer is the one that fell, and they kind of need to know about that. She wants to let them know what is going on with the war and all of those soldier things that she isn't going to bother her civilians with. So she leaves the mess hall and is heading for the command center, but it takes her a very long time to get there. This is the flip side of being a very good commander. Lots of people know that they can come to her for issues, but before she can even get anywhere near the command center, Kel has to break up a fight. This is one where I will probably read you snatches of it because it's pretty good. Kel's looking around and she sees a fight breaking out, and she can pretty much tell at a glance what is going on. These are two guys much bigger than Kel, which is saying something because Kel is not a tiny little shrinking violet. And these are big guys. They're kicking, they're rolling around, trying to beat each other up. And off to one side, she can see the source of what is causing the issue, which is one of the new young women. So Kelsey, sees what's going on, makes a few quick decisions, jumps in and starts breaking it up. And we'll just read a little bit. It says, Kel had seen enough. As the brawlers grabbed each other in bear hugs, she strode in. They were big, strong fellows, but she had spent 8 years strengthening her arms and learning the right time and place to attack. She grabbed both men by the hair and slammed their foreheads together, while the watchers gasped in awe. That amuses me more than I can say. I just love the image of the head bonk. Call me crazy, it made me happy. It didn't really work, though. She's like, all right, what's going on here? They try and struggle away from her, and she smashes their heads together again. She tells them, this saddens me. It really, truly does. Two grown men brawling like apprentices. Now, here's what you can do for me. Promise to be good lads and go to your beds, and I won't remember your faces later on. She turned their heads so that they looked at her. They both had black eyes and swollen mouths. One bled from a bite on his ear, and another had a broken nose, so she said, on second thought, if you promise to be good, I'll let you visit Sir Nealon, and I won't even ask him to make sure that the healing is stings so that you can remember it. Would you like that? Kel's voice was soft and reasonable, but the look she gave them was anything but. It is pointed out that she has never flogged anyone like most nobles, but they don't know that, and that gets them to agree. She makes them shake hands and sends them off to the infirmary, and then turns on the young woman who had been watching this all and is like, you, I see you're trying to fade into the background. Come here. It turns out that both of these young men were fighting over this young woman, and Cal's like, why didn't you declare which young man that you were interested in? The girl tries to do the whole, well, I just couldn't make up my mind. And so that girl ends up on latrine duty. After breaking up that fight, Kel resumes her walk back to her meeting with the soldiers and is interrupted by about 8 or 10 more civilians who have issues and problems that only she can deal with. By the time Kel gets to her council meeting with her fellow soldiers, she's got a headache. She reflects that she's ending up with a lot more headaches now that she's in charge of all these civilians. Thankfully, Neil, best friend till the end, puts a little magic into her mug and gets rid of the headache. But more importantly for Kel, he also comes up with an idea that she thinks is brilliant. He says that what she needs to do is each of the refugees' buildings should appoint one man and one woman, and then one soldier, and everybody can bring their issues to those people, and they can rule on most everything, and anything that they can't decide about, they can then bring to Cal, and it would only be, one representative from each building, and wouldn't that be better? And Kel's like, oh my gosh, you are brilliant. Neil, never one for false modesty, is like, oh, this is wonderful. Neil's like, yes, of course, I am wonderful. Everybody goes to bed after Cal lets everybody know about what happened at Fort Giant's Killer and about the fact that it's going to end up being rebuilt. She lets them know that they have new equipment and that the war is not really going great, but it's not like they're losing. Cal heads to bed and wakes up the next day and does what has become her usual morning routine here at Haven. She does her glaive practice, she teaches the youngsters a little bit of spear work, then she goes and does some archery practice, and is about to join her work detail because, like the best of commanders and like Lord Raoul taught her, a good commander does a little bit of everything. So that day she has assigned herself to latrine duty, but one of the farmers is like, you're a big strong girl, why should you waste yourself on latrine duty when you can learn to plow a field? He brings her over to an oxen and a plow, gives her a quick demonstration, hands her the reins, and says, go for it. I don't know if you've ever seen someone try to plow with an oxen. It's not easy from everything I've seen. I've never done it personally, but it does not sound easy, and Kel does not find it easy. Her first few furrows kind of look like this, and the plow has not bit into the ground, so they aren't even deep enough to be planted. Cal is determined that she is going to do it, but is also horrified to find out that she's getting a blister like some lily-handed noble. Before she can do too many more plows, though, the sparrows come streaming out of the trees and let everybody know that they are under attack yet again. Cal isn't exactly sure how her plowing farmers that she is out with are going to react, but to her amazement and pride, they drop their reins on their oxen, reach into the plow where underneath it is hooked a crossbow, and they begin repelling the attack. In fact, it by the time the soldiers from Haven get to them out in the fields, pretty much the attack is over, and all of Kel's soldiers just have to do a mop up detail. So that kind of shows that Kel is an awesome, awesome trainer, and that is where the chapter ends. Now, give me a second. I'm going to go grab a drink, and we are going to do the next chapter. So we move on to chapter 11, which is titled Shattered Sanctuary, where Kel and her civilians and soldiers are actually getting better and better. They repel a couple more attacks. Kel is a fantastic trainer. She is a great commander. I wish I had like a fifth of her organizational skills and patience. Her people trust her. More refugees arrive, and Kel discovers that there is a flip side to Neil's fantastic idea about council, and that is the fact that she's now dealing with debates amongst the council members. She grumbles to Neil that he should have to deal with it since it was his brilliant idea, because she is now getting just as many headaches as she did before. But a good thing is, with more refugees coming in, Kel actually stops joining the work details, which is a mixed blessing. She thought that her furrows were getting a little bit better, but now she pretty much takes over training. She is teaching the civilians more and more military like weapon skills, and she is teaching her civilians and her soldiers how to communicate with the animals that Dane made smarter. Not really smarter, she just made them think a little bit more human. And as such, Kel and the animals come up with signals that they can use to actually communicate with the humans. It's kind of a mixed blessing as well, because some of the humans are freaked out by these animals that are as smart as they are and kind of won't communicate with them, talking about these unnatural critters. And some of the animals are having their patience tested because they've learned that with humans now knowing how to communicate with them, that's all some humans want to do. There's another attack, and this attack is repelled completely by the animals and the civilians before the soldiers can even get out there. Haven's citizens are now having a loud, rowdy celebration, and Kel thinks about the fact that the attacks are coming more frequently, and she's a little bit worried about the next time that she has to go to Fort Mastiff and report to Lord Wilden, which is coming up very, very soon. Now, she gets reassurance about this from, of all places, Tobe, who I don't know if I did quite as good of a job as I should have talking about Tobe in my initial recap. But Tobe is a refugee that Kel rescued. He was an indentured servant that they met along the way as they were heading towards where Kel got assigned to be the leader of Haven. And one of the things about Tobe, at least for a while, was that he would not let Kel out of his sight, because he said that too many people who took an interest in him and said that they were going to help him and take care of him would just drop him as soon as they didn't see him anymore. And so he literally would not let Kel out of his sight at all. So Kel was worrying out loud about heading off to Haven, and Tobe tells her, you know, maybe Lord Wilden will give you more soldiers, and don't worry about us. We'll be fine. Kel says, wait, weren't you planning on going with me? And Tobe smiles at her and says, I guess if you go away, you're probably actually coming back. Which was one of the nicest things that Kel had seen or heard that Tobe now had enough confidence, not only in her, but in their ability to defend themselves, that he's not like ultra clingy. So, after discussing with Neil and with more of her civilians, everybody pretty much is in agreement that Haven's in a pretty good state. You know, Zamil, who is one of her clerks, says that the civilians take confidence in what they can do, and they also take confidence in the confidence that you put in them. So give them a little more confidence, keep to your schedule, and don't worry about us back here at Haven. We can take care of ourselves if the enemy comes a calling. So Kel heads off to go report into Lord Wilden, hopefully get some more soldiers, get some more supplies because they need them. She tells Tobe and the rest of the children not to skip practice while she's gone. She gives them a few more things. Tobe's like, yeah, go on. And with one last, don't forget to eat your vegetables, then Kel heads off to report in. Her friend Owen is delighted to see her. She reports into Lord Wilden. They find out a little bit more about the war, what's going on, the fact that the City of Gods is still under siege, which is kind of bad because it's where most of the mages are trained. The Tortalan Navy is gone off to attack the Skarnan Navy, which is blocking in one of the other sieges. Nobody has found the Nothing Man yet, which is sad. Kel thinks about the fact that the war is progressing without her. She is not very happy about that. She really wants to go and hunt the Nothing Man, but she heads to bed. She wakes up because she's been having a nightmare. It's one of her typical nightmares, you know, where you're stuck, you can't do anything, and of course in this one she's not wearing any clothes. She wakes up and realizes that she is in Fort Mastiff, but she can hear still pounding and doesn't know what the heck is going on. It turns out that it is a soldier pounding on her door saying, "Get to Lord Wilden's office now." Kel jumps into her clothes, rushes to Lord Wilden's office, where a bedraggled and weeping boy is being held up by Lord Wilden, who is giving him a cup of tea. She looks again, and this bedraggled, weeping, dirty-faced, clothes-ripped child is Tobe. Tobe showing up in this way in the middle of the night kind of tells Kel everything that she needs to know. Something went wrong at Haven while she was gone. So, yeah, not really good. Tobe lets her know that Haven was attacked by more mechanicals, probably 5 or 6 of them, and an entire contingent of Skarnan soldiers. Zamil, the clerk, told Tobe to take the animal's bolt hole, which was a special escape route put in for the animals, and try and get to Kel. Tobe, all day on the road, finally made it to Fort Mastiff, and so everybody heads back to see what's going on. They arrive to find out that Haven is not just sacked. Haven is a smoking, craterous ruin. The Skarnans overran it. The dead are everywhere. They're trying to find survivors. They're not finding anyone. Kel is looking left and right, and what makes it even worse is that there are storm wings all over, and they are desecrating the Haven dead. One of the storm wings ironically approaches Kel and lets Kel know that, you know, they're kind of sorry to be desecrating the Haven dead because, you know, they weren't really soldiers, but that Kel has been starving them out because usually, you know, people don't even care about the enemy dead, and they at least have something to feed off of and desecrate. Kel, that almost breaks Kel, but she runs the Stormwing off and they go back to their searching. Kel notes as she is going through that a lot of the mechanicals were taken out, but a lot of the facts, a lot of them were taken out by a mix of human and animal assistance. And Kel thinks for a little while that maybe Dane was right as she takes one of her many sparrow friends out of a mechanical where it had lodged itself into the mechanical's eye to give the humans a chance to come up on the thing's blind side. That maybe Dane was right. Maybe making the animals think like humans so that they'll sacrifice themselves in defense of humans wasn't exactly the best thing. But then again, they did help bring down many of the killing machines. They keep searching, and Kel starts to realize that there aren't any wounded. There aren't any survivors. There aren't any horses, but there are pigs and cows and meat animals. There is not a single child, and pretty much all of the civilians are gone. Pretty much all they're finding in the way of dead are mages and soldiers, and that's less than 1/5 of Haven's population. So where is everybody? And Kel kind of comes to the conclusion that they've probably been taken as prisoners of war, which we know what that means. That's probably not a good thing considering how many of Haven's population were children. And we know that the enemy takes the adults, makes them slaves, takes the children, and basically gives them to the Nothing Man to make more mechanicals. Well, Kel is thinking about this and pondering and weeping over the dead of Haven. Somebody yells that Merrick, the knight who was in charge of the outside defenses, has been found. We don't know whether he has been found alive or dead, but he has been found, and that is where the chapter ends, and we fade to black. So we don't have a lot of chapters left, but we do have enough left, and that is probably the worst tragedy that could have happened. And it was kind of heavily foreshadowed just by the fact that Kel was so nervous about leaving her civilians alone, and also that Tobe stayed behind. I'm glad that Tobe wasn't amongst the dead or the missing, because I don't know if my little heart could have handled it, but it's bad enough that all these people who were looking to Kel seem to be amongst the missing. We're just going to have to wait and see if Kel is going to go rogue and go hunting them on her own, or if she's going to be leading a command, or what is going to happen. But yeah, very, very high tension moments in that last chapter. Again, if you can get your hands on this series, I highly recommend it, because unfortunately, me doing it this way, you're missing out on probably some of the best writing ever. Fantastic author. I do love Tamora Pierce. She's amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this quick rendition of 2 chapters this time. Yay for me. And I didn't even completely put a dent in my finger writing it all out. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. Please do leave me a thumbs up if you don't mind, and I will see you next time.